Welcome back to Cheddar, everybody. Facebook's head honcho is heading back to Capitol Hill. We're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, who will be testifying in front of the House Financial Services Committee in 2 weeks' time, focusing on the platform's proposed cryptocurrency project, Libra. Dominik Schiener is the co-founder of IOTA, which is a distributed ledger working on becoming the trusted layer of our digital economy. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Libra has been in the headlines quite a bit lately, and we've also learned today that Libra's product chief has resigned. What is the crypto and the digital currency community doing right now in terms of figuring out their future based on regulations that might be coming here?
Well, I think what's become very apparent over the last few months and years is that we as technologists cannot do this alone. We really need to work together with the regulators, the policymakers to really shape a framework that makes it possible for these cryptocurrencies to actually bear fruit, meaning that they actually have an impact and that they're actually going to be adopted. And Libra is a very interesting project where they have not really reached out to the regulators initially, and now they're getting all of this backfire. And they really need to clean up their plate now and talk with the regulators, making sure that they're actually doing the right thing.
And trying to be more proactive in this case and talking to regulators before it becomes too late, like how we're seeing with data privacy overall. What is your relationship with regulators? How are you pushing the conversation to ensure that the right regulation exists before it is too late when it comes to this innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. So since the inception of IOTA and the IOTA Foundation, we've always said we want to be regulated because the only path to adoption is to be regulated. And that is exactly why we created an international nonprofit based out of Germany. And we are a nonprofit, we are regulated, we are audited, and we work very closely with the regulators, especially in Germany, where we, for example, co-founded an organization together with the European Commission to really bring the policymakers and the distributed ledger experts together to shape this regulation together. But we're also part of some of the other work globally, and it's kind of apparent that we cannot do this alone. We need to do this together with the technologists and with the policymakers.
Are the policymakers knowledgeable enough to even be able to think about a future where this exists and be able to regulate properly?
I think what's exciting for the policymakers is that they see a very nascent technology that has a lot of potential. With all of the recent hacks and security attacks and state attackers really posing a real risk to our infrastructure, they're starting to realize that the blockchain, distributed ledgers, and technologies like IOTA have real potential to solve some of these trust and security issues that we face today. So they're very receptive to talk with us, to talk with other projects, to really figure out how can we make sure that you're on the right path, and how can we make sure that this innovation is not going to be crumbled.
Let's take a step back, and can you kind of explain how this trust layer of the digital economy, how that might manifest itself in a regular user's day-to-day? How might we come across your technology?
Yeah, so maybe let's start with the Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things today, it's all about automation. How can you make a device smarter so that it's connected, it transfers data, and the network of devices becomes smarter. But in the Internet of Things, we really have an inherent problem with security. Or we have a problem where one big corporate owns the ecosystem, owns the devices, and owns the data. And as such, I as a user no longer have access to my machine because the corporate, the cloud owns it. And now with a technology like IOTA, the ownership structure and the trust itself gets distributed across this network. That means I no longer need to trust a single party. I simply participate in this open network and my device can be trusted. And I own the data and I can decide what happens with that. And there's obviously very exciting use cases that stem from that. Our big vision is to go further than just automation. We want to have autonomy. So we want to make it possible for one machine to pay another machine seamlessly.
Well, I think that's exciting to hear about the devices, but does that mean also sort of our smartphones? Can we actually turn back time to make it, to reverse all the stuff that we've already kind of given up? You know, I'm thinking, of course, about data portability when it comes to Facebook and Twitter. Is it possible to do that?
That's a very interesting question. It's a very difficult question to answer, right? What's very exciting, or what's very important, what happened over the last few months is that we really became more aware that our data is really the most valuable good that is out there. And we need to act now to really make sure that we own our data. And what happened in the past, we cannot reverse that. But what we can make sure is that we really start building towards the future, meaning that we start creating an environment where data privacy, data security, and data ownership are really the top priority. Because we do not want to have our sensitive data running around on some servers where some hacker can just easily access it. And this is also why digital identities are such a huge topic, right? I want to really have a portable identity that I own and I can decide which kind of attributes of my identity I can share.
I just want to, and I'm not trying to be mean or condescending, but do average users even know how to do this stuff? I mean, it seems like difficult, you know, for most of us, and to take care of that on an individual level with all the data points.
Absolutely.
Are we smart enough to be able to figure this out?
It's a very good question, and I think this is really why we need to make a distinction between the base protocols that enable these applications and the applications themselves. At the end of the day, our job as a foundation is to enable companies, large corporates, to utilize this protocol to really create new applications that they take the data privacy and data security into account. The big vision here is always that the user in the end doesn't even know which kind of technology is being utilized to secure their identity, because this user experience has to be as seamless as possible. But I really need to have this assurance that my data is not being stolen.
So that digital layer of trust is essentially invisible to the
Exactly.
end user. So you guys are clearly security, safety first. For Facebook getting into digital currencies, getting into financial services, given that they have a lot of other data about their users, what are some of the biggest risks, and what do you think regulators are really going to be questioning when Zuckerberg testifies?
So I think what we should really ask are, what are the hidden incentives? So when it comes to Libra, it's kind of obvious that Facebook wanted to move into the payment space because we saw the huge success that WeChat had in China, where they've sort of become the payment standard. And Facebook obviously wants to replicate that success in the payment space. And what they've done is they've taken a very different approach. They said, we want to utilize a blockchain to solve the trust problem, and we want to create a consortium. But this really raises the question, what is the incentive for Facebook to do that? And in my opinion, the big incentive is simply to get more data. And this is one of the most sensitive data sets that you can get, your financial transactions, right? So they know when and how and what you bought. And this is really just strengthening their data ownership over you, and also strengthening their advertisement that they send out to you. So in my opinion, that is their big incentive here. And that is exactly what the regulators should look out for. Like, how is this financial data going to be utilized on the Facebook platform, and how are they actually going to abuse it potentially also in the future?
I love the name IOTA, right, the smallest piece. You also mentioned a little bit earlier, kind of off camera, that Berlin is the capital of blockchain. What do you mean by that?
So what's exciting about Berlin is that it's a young technology hub that really started developing over the last few years, and many of the blockchain innovators and developers really started building a sort of local ecosystem there. And that's why many exciting projects such as IOTA are headquartered there. But obviously we are a global project, and that's exciting about blockchain, and it's really global.
I'm just wondering if it's like a cultural thing, you know, in Germany, of having this ownership.
I think Germany, that is also why we set up our nonprofit in Germany, because the mentality there is different. It's not like we want to own the ecosystem, or it's like we want to build something for the greater good. And that is why Germany and Europe are sort of leading in this whole data privacy movement right now.
GDPR, we remember it well. Thank you so much. Dominik Schiener is the co-founder of IOTA. Thanks again.